I'm Ethan, a 22-year-old still slogging through college, always the guy who blends into the crowd. I'm not the loudmouth in lectures, not cracking jokes or stealing the spotlight, but I'm observant, picking up on the little details around me. I grew up in a quiet little town just beyond Milwaukee's edges. Nothing major ever goes down here, which makes what I'm about to tell you feel like it's straight out of a dream, even now. I've always played it safe, staying out of trouble until the day I showed up at my buddy's house and everything flipped upside down. Ryan's been my closest friend since freshman year. We clicked instantly like we'd been pals for years. He's the guy with a quick wit, always tossing out one-liners and pulling people in with his charm. We've tackled class projects together, spent weekends gaming or just chilling, doing typical college kid stuff. His place was like a second home to me. I'd been there so many times I lost count. That day, we were supposed to meet up to hammer out a marketing presentation for a class. Earlier, Ryan shot me a text saying he'd be running late from a work shift but to head over anyway. His mom would be home. I'd met Lauren, his mom, a handful of times before. She had this laid-back, welcoming vibe, the kind of mom who makes killer coffee, rocks vintage band tees, and treats her son's friends like they're part of the family. She was pushing 40 but didn't look it, with this effortless beauty, gentle features, piercing eyes, and a smile that instantly put you at ease. I rolled up to their house around 3 p.m. The sun was shining, a soft breeze kicking around. It felt like just another easygoing afternoon. I strolled up to the door and hit the doorbell, expecting Ryan to open it. Instead, Lauren answered, rocking nothing but an oversized white tee that barely reached past her thighs, no makeup, hair tossed up in a messy bun, and barefoot. She looked like she'd just rolled out of bed or maybe finished tidying up. I froze for a split second, not because she looked out of place, nah, it was the opposite. She looked stunning, like she wasn't even trying. She leaned her head to one side and flashed a smile. "Hey, it's you," she said, her voice as relaxed as ever. "Come on in. I'm by myself." Something about those words, "I'm by myself," hit me hard. It wasn't flirty, just straight up honest, but they stuck in my head. I stepped inside, trying to play it cool, but I couldn't help noticing how the sunlight poured into the living room, highlighting her silhouette as she walked ahead of me. That t-shirt barely covered her thighs, and my brain was yelling, "Don't stare, dude." But yeah, I stole a quick glance. In the kitchen, she spun around to face me. "Ryan's caught up at work, but I think he said you might swing by," she said. "You want a drink? I've got coffee or some iced tea." "Iced tea'd be awesome," I said, praying my voice didn't give away how nervous I was. She glided through the kitchen like it was no big deal, grabbed a pitcher from the fridge, and poured me a glass smooth like she'd done it a million times. I parked myself at the kitchen island, drumming my fingers on the counter, trying to keep my eyes from wandering. But they did. Her legs, the way her shirt slid off one shoulder. It wasn't like she was putting on a show, it was just natural, and that's what made it so hard to look away. She handed me the glass and plopped down across from me. "So, how's college going for you?" she asked. I rambled a bit about the project, how Ryan and I were swamped with assignments, stressing over grades and internships, the usual. She listened intently, nodding as she sipped her own drink. After a quiet moment, she said, "You know, you're one of the few friends Ryan brings around who seems like he's got his head on straight. You've got this calm vibe. I dig that." I didn't know what to say, so I just grinned. "Appreciate that. I do my best." We sat there for a second, the silence not weird, just heavy, like there was something hanging in the air we weren't saying. Then she chuckled softly. "Sorry, I probably look like a hot mess right now. Just threw this shirt on," she said, giving the hem of her tee a little tug. I let out a nervous laugh. "Nah, you look good." "I mean great." I stumbled over my words. She laughed again, soft and playful, cutting me off. "Chill, Ethan. I'm just messing with you." My face felt like it was on fire. We ended up chatting for almost half an hour about music, books, and funny stories about Ryan as a kid. At some point, it didn't feel like I was talking to my friend's mom anymore. It was just real, like we were two people who just got each other. Ryan texted eventually, saying he'd be another hour. I glanced at Lauren. "Should I head out and come back when he's here?" She paused for a moment, then said, "No way, stick around. You're already here unless you've got somewhere else to be." I shook my head. "Nah, I'm good." Her smile came back, warm and easy. "Then hang out. I've got some old movies we could watch to kill time," she offered. We settled into the living room and she popped on some old black and white flick I'd never heard of. She took one end of the couch, I took the other. We mostly watched, but every now and then I'd catch her glancing my way. A couple times I looked back. Nothing happened, not really, but there was this subtle shift, like an invisible line had appeared between us. We didn't cross it, but we both knew it was there. I didn't plan on going back so soon, but after that day, I couldn't shake it, her look, her voice, that smile, and that one moment when our eyes locked during the movie. It stuck with me way longer than I wanted to admit. I didn't breathe a word to Ryan, obviously. How do you even explain something like that? I barely got it myself. A few days later, Ryan hit me up again, same deal. He was out running errands with his dad and wouldn't be home for a bit, but I could stop by to grab a flash drive we needed for our project. I hesitated for a second, but before I knew it, I was driving over. I pulled into their driveway and just sat in my car for a minute, staring at the front door. Part of me hoped she wouldn't be there, the other part was dying to see her again. I rapped on the door, and there she was again, Lauren, this time in jeans and a hoodie, hair loose, still barefoot, flashing that same warm smile. "Hey, Ethan," she said, her voice sounding genuinely happy I was there. "Back again so soon, huh? Ryan's not around, though." "I know," I replied. He said I could swing by to pick up a flash drive. She moved aside to let me step in. "It's probably on the kitchen counter. You want a drink while you're here?" I paused for a second. "Yeah, sure, that'd be nice." We strolled into the kitchen where the light was soft and cozy and the air carried that same sweet smell, maybe vanilla or cinnamon, I couldn't quite pin it down. She didn't demand attention, but somehow the whole room felt like it belonged to her. She poured us both glasses of water and leaned back against the counter, arms folded casually. "So, how's that project coming along?" she asked. I gave a half shrug. "It's kind of a disaster, to be honest. Ryan's been scattered, and I've been, well, distracted. We're way behind schedule." She let out a grin. "Sounds like classic college life," she said. "I remember those days pulling all-nighters, living on coffee, stressing out nonstop." I chuckled. "Yeah, that's pretty much it." Her expression softened, turning more serious. "Do you ever feel like everyone's waiting for you to have your whole life mapped out already?" she asked. "Every single day," I said, caught off guard that she'd even go there. "My parents think I'm wasting my time with these business courses. They wanted me to go for something secure, whatever that even means anymore." She nodded slowly like she got it completely. "My dad was like that too. Everything had to be planned out, safe, predictable, no room to just exist." There was a quiet moment then, not awkward, but loaded, like we were sharing some unspoken truth. In that second, she looked at me not like some college kid, but like someone who'd been through the same kind of struggle she had. "You know," she said, "it's kinda refreshing to talk to someone who actually hears me." "I feel the same about you," I admitted. Without saying much, we wandered back to the living room like we both wanted to hold onto whatever vibe we'd stumbled into. She curled up at one end of the couch, same spot as last time, legs tucked under her, facing me just a bit. She seemed more at ease, maybe even a little vulnerable in a subtle way. She snatched the remote and started scrolling through channels. "Another old movie?" I teased. "You always into those black and white classics?" She smiled. "They take me back to a quieter time, less chaos. People actually had real conversations back then." "You think folks don't really talk anymore?" I asked. She locked eyes with me for a moment. "Not really," she said. "Not like we're doing now." We didn't say much after that, just sat there as the TV screen flickered. Then she reached back, grabbed a throw blanket, and tossed it over my lap. "Looked like you were chilly," she said, brushing it off like it was no big deal. I wasn't cold, but I didn't move it. Then she did something that threw me. She leaned over and adjusted the blanket, just a touch, her fingers grazing my knee. It wasn't a mistake, but it wasn't blatant either. It was deliberate, light, but it sent a jolt through me. I glanced at her. She was already looking back, no teasing this time, just something raw and real in her eyes. I cleared my throat. "Lauren, do you ever get the sense that?" She cut me off, her hand resting gently on mine, slow and intentional. "I know what you're trying to say," she murmured, "and I don't have an answer." We sat in silence after that, the kind where time feels like it's stretching out forever. "I'm not trying to screw anything up," I said quietly. "I know you're not," she whispered back, her voice barely audible. She let go of my hand, slow and careful, then stood up. "I should get back to folding laundry," she said with a faint smile, "but I'm glad you came by." I got to my feet too, my head spinning, unsure what had just gone down, or if anything had at all. But something had changed between us, you could feel it like the charged air before a thunderstorm rolls in. She walked me to the door and opened it. I turned, wanting to say something deep, but all I managed was, "Thanks for the water." She gave a small, warm smile. "Anytime, Ethan." I stepped outside, the door closing behind me with a soft click, final but gentle. As I headed to my car, I knew something had started, something unexpected, something I wasn't sure I could stop. Maybe I didn't even want to. I didn't see Lauren for about a week after that. I tried to shove the whole thing out of my head, what almost happened on that couch, but it kept looping back, her hand on mine, that look in her eyes, the way she said, "I know what you're trying to say." That wasn't nothing. It wasn't just my imagination. Still, I told myself to drop it. She was Ryan's mom. She was older. It wasn't supposed to go anywhere, and that should have been the end. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Ryan hit me up on Wednesday night, saying he was off to Chicago for the weekend to visit his dad and wouldn't be around. He asked if I could stop by his place to pick up a folder with more stuff for our project. It was getting late, pushing close to 7 p.m. I paused for a moment but said, "Yeah, no problem." I pulled into their driveway, my headlights slicing through the dim, bluish haze of dusk. From the outside, the house glowed warm and welcoming, porch light on, but something tightened in my chest as I headed to the door. I knocked. Lauren opened it, barefoot as usual, wearing a long white t-shirt, maybe not the same one as before, but close enough to jog my memory. Her hair was loose and a bit damp, like she just stepped out of the shower. She looked at me for a beat, not shocked, just fully present. "Hey," she said softly, "it's you again. Ryan sent me to grab a folder from his room," I told her. She swung the door open wider, stepping to the side. "Come on in. I'm by myself." Those words echoed the last time, but they hit heavier now. I walked inside. The air smelled fresh, soap mixed with something cozy, maybe candles burning somewhere. The house was still, no TV blaring, no music, just the faint hum of the fridge. "He's out of town, right?" she asked as I started toward the stairs. "Yeah, headed to Chicago," I said, pausing halfway up and glancing back. She was still by the door, her eyes fixed on me. "Want something before you head out?" she offered. "Water? Maybe some wine." I almost said no, but instead I went with, "Wine sounds nice." She gave a small nod and moved to the kitchen. I trailed behind. She poured 2 glasses of red wine and leaned against the counter, taking slow sips. I grabbed mine and stood across from her. We chatted about random stuff, music, old memories, nothing heavy. She mentioned how empty the house felt with Ryan gone. I vented about how much I dreaded school deadlines. She laughed and we kept sipping. Then the room went quiet, not awkward, just calm and full. She set her glass down and looked at me, her face shifting to something more serious. "Ethan, can I ask you something real?" "Go for it," I said. "Why'd you really show up tonight?" I hesitated. "For Ryan's folder." She cut me off, soft but firm. "Come on, Ethan. You could have had him email the file or waited till he was back." I didn't answer. I couldn't lie, not with her staring at me like that. She took a step closer, then another. "I haven't stopped thinking about you," she said, her voice low and steady. "Since you were here last. I know it's not right. I know I shouldn't feel this way, but it's there." My throat tightened, heart pounding. "I've been thinking about you too," I confessed. We stood there, inches apart, the kitchen light flickering for a split second. She reached up, her hand resting gently on my chest. I didn't budge. "You're so young," she whispered. "You're Ryan's friend. I'm not supposed to want this." "I know," I said, my voice quiet. She leaned in slowly, like she was giving me every chance to pull back. I didn't. Our lips touched, soft at first, hesitant, then again, deeper, sure. Her hand slid to my neck, then my back. I held her waist, steady but gentle. The kiss was long, warm, carrying all the things we hadn't dared to say. When we finally broke apart, we just stood there, breathing softly, eyes locked. "We can't do this," she said, turning away, her hand covering her face. "This can't happen again." "I know," I replied. "I'm sorry." "I'm not," she said, turning back to me. "I don't regret it, but we've got to be careful." I nodded. "Yeah, I understand." She moved to the living room and sank onto the couch. I followed. We didn't kiss again that night, didn't push it further. We just sat there, our legs brushing under a shared blanket. The TV was on, some random show flickering, but neither of us was really paying attention. When it got late, I stood. "I should probably get going," I said. She walked me to the door, same as before, but this time, as I stepped outside, she leaned close and whispered, "If you come back, make sure you're alone." I gave a small nod and the door clicked shut behind me. I didn't tell a soul, not Ryan, not my friends, not even myself, if I'm being honest. I didn't speak the kiss out loud, didn't try to make sense of it. I just carried it like a secret I wasn't meant to keep but couldn't let go of either. I didn't plan on seeing Lauren again, not like that. It was a lazy Saturday afternoon and I was beat from a long day on campus, my mind on autopilot. Somehow, without thinking, I found myself turning onto their street. No call, no heads up, just a gut feeling pulling me there. I parked in the driveway, walked up and knocked. When she opened the door, her eyes met mine like she'd been expecting me, like this moment was always coming. She was in that same long t-shirt, barefoot, her gaze a mix of caution and something deeper, something wanting. We didn't say a word. She moved aside and I stepped in. That day shifted something permanent. We never made vows or labeled what we had. It wasn't some grand, cinematic romance, but it was real, raw in that quiet, intense way that lives in stolen glances, fleeting touches, and words we left hanging. For the next 3 weeks, I kept finding excuses to drop by whenever Ryan was out. Sometimes she'd send a quick text, other times I'd just show up and somehow she was always there, ready, like the silence between us was unbroken. We took our time, never rushing. It wasn't about haste. It was those slow, wordless afternoons in the living room, me on the couch, her next to me, our legs brushing under a shared blanket. She'd hand me a mug of coffee and it tasted better just because it came from her. Sometimes, during a movie, she'd lean in, her head resting lightly on my shoulder. She'd laugh at some dumb comment I made about school, and sometimes we'd kiss, soft, easy kisses that didn't demand more. They just happened, whether in the kitchen, the hallway, or once out back by the porch as the sky softened to pink in the sunset. We never put a name to it because naming it would have made it too real, too dangerous. One night stands out in my memory. She had some old, slow music playing softly in the background. She was wearing a baggy sweatshirt, sleeves pulled over her hands, cozy and unguarded. We sat close on the couch and I opened up about not wanting to follow my dad's path into construction, how it wasn't me no matter what he expected. She listened, her eyes fixed on mine, never cutting me off. Then she said, "You make me feel like I'm more than just Ryan's mom, like I'm still my own person." That hit me harder than I thought it would. "You are," I said. "You're way more than that." We kissed then, longer, her hands cradling my face like she needed to feel me there, and I held her back because I needed it too. But even in that warmth I could sense it, the boundary we were skirting was getting harder to ignore. We never brought up Ryan, not once. That was our silent agreement, absolute and unspoken. In this little world we'd carved out, he didn't exist. Then one afternoon as I watched her make tea, something hit me like a punch. I didn't want this to stop, but I knew it couldn't last. We were living on borrowed time. Every kiss, every shared look, every laugh was a gamble, a quiet risk we both took. One day she turned to me, her eyes different, heavier. "You know this has to end, don't you?" I nodded. "Yeah, I know. I don't want anyone getting hurt," she said. "Especially not Ryan. We've already crossed too many lines." "I know. But I don't regret any of it." "Neither do I," she said softly. Then came that familiar silence, not heavy or painful, just full of understanding. That week, we saw each other twice more. Both times felt tender, warm, like an unspoken farewell. Our kisses lingered, our touches held a little tighter, our smiles softer. The last time I left her house, she didn't walk me to the door. She stayed on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, legs tucked under her. "You're gonna do something great with your life, Ethan," she said. "I can feel it." I stood there, torn between staying and leaving. Then she added this, "Whatever we had, it meant something to me." I nodded. It meant something to me too. I opened the door myself, stepped out and shut it behind me. That was the last time I was ever alone in her house. After that, everything went quiet. No texts, no drop-ins, no more lazy afternoons on the couch or talks over coffee. I kept waiting for her to reach out, even just a simple, "You doing okay?" But she didn't, and I didn't either. I buried myself in schoolwork with finals looming. Ryan came back from Chicago, and just like that, things between us slid back to normal, like nothing had ever happened, like I hadn't spent 3 weeks living in a secret world inside his house, just steps from his room. It felt surreal. I'd sit next to him, working on projects, acting like I didn't remember every quiet moment I'd spent down that hallway, knowing Lauren was waiting for me in the living room. She faded into the background. If she was home, I didn't see her. Sometimes I'd hear her voice upstairs or catch a glimpse of her passing a doorway, but there were no looks, no lingering glances, just distance. And I got it. That chapter was closed. What we'd had was fragile, fleeting. Dragging it out would have broken whatever was still standing. She had her life, her son, her home, and me. I was just a college kid stuck between being young and figuring out what came next. As much as we'd needed each other in those moments, we both knew it couldn't go further. Still, the silence left its mark. A week went by, then 2. One Friday afternoon, I stopped by Ryan's place to pick up a textbook I'd left behind. He was at the gym and told me to let myself in. The door was unlocked, as always. I stepped inside, the house quiet and still. I walked through the hallway, reached for the textbook on the counter, and then I heard her voice behind me. "Ethan." I spun around. There she was, standing at the base of the stairs, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup, dressed in a hoodie and leggings. She looked worn out but still had that gentle warmth in her eyes. "Hey," I said, my voice coming out quieter than I meant it to. She gave a small nod. "How you holding up?" "Swamped," I replied. "You?" Same old, same old. A quiet moment settled between us, that familiar silence we'd grown used to, but this time it didn't carry any weight. It just felt real, like we were finally seeing each other clearly. I wasn't sure we'd cross paths again, she said softly. Honestly, I didn't think we would either, I admitted. She walked over slowly, leaning against the kitchen counter across from me, arms folded, her gaze dipping to the floor before lifting to meet mine. I've been thinking a lot about everything that went down, she said. Me too, I said. I need you to know I don't feel bad about it. I don't regret a single moment. I nodded. Same here. We were looking for something, she said, her voice steady. Maybe we didn't realize it then, but we were. And I'm glad it was you I found it with. I looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. I'm glad it was you too, Lauren. We stood there, just a few feet apart, the space between us filled with everything we didn't need to say, like a silent farewell. I'm not the kind of person who does stuff like this, she said. It shook me how natural it felt with you. It felt right, I told her, because it was what we needed, even if just for that moment. She smiled faintly. Yeah, exactly. Another pause came, but this one was calm, almost soothing. Ryan doesn't know, she said, and he never will. That's important to me. I'd never say a word to him, I promised. Not ever. I know you wouldn't. She took a single step forward and reached out, her hand brushing mine for just a second, a soft, final gesture like a quiet thank you. Take care out there, Ethan. You too, Lauren. And that was it. She stepped back. I grabbed my textbook off the counter and headed for the door. I didn't glance back. When I slid into my car and turned the key, I didn't feel crushed or torn apart. I felt at peace, like whatever we'd shared had ended the only way it could, cleanly, at the right moment, in the right way. No big scenes, no empty promises, no dramatic farewells in the rain. Just something rare and beautiful, a fleeting piece of time the world couldn't touch, tucked away where it'd always stay safe. We never went there again. We never spoke of it. We never brought it up. But sometimes when I drive by her street or hear one of those old songs she loved, those days come rushing back, and I can't help but smile. Because for a little while, I knew her, the real her, and she knew me.